Welcome to the TMCnet newsroom at IT Expo. We are having a blast at Austin, and I'm with my friend Doug Mohney. Doug, you are now HDVoice News. Is that the?
Yes, HDVoice News, editor-in-chief.
And there's been a lot of talk about HD right now, and the fact that there have been discussions about the iPhone getting it. You want to talk about what's going on with the iPhone 5?
You know, it's like God bless Apple. Damn Apple. It's been one of those issues where Apple has simultaneously raised the bar of awareness, and yet there's confusion as to what where HDVoice is supported on with the iPhone 5. So it's been a royal pain in the neck.
But there is some support on there?
If you happen to be over in Europe, yes, that the iPhone 5, the HSP, whatever the version, basically the GSM-based version of the
HSPDA.
HSPDA. Thank you. My too many acronyms this morning. The HSPA version overseas, over in Europe, over on Telstra's network, supports HDVoice, verified, confirmed by the carriers, confirmed by third parties. It's all good. But then you turn to the United States, and all of a sudden you realize in the United States it's like the U.S. carriers still don't have their act together with HDVoice, and it appears it's going to take a while to get things sorted out.
So now, I know a lot of our clearinghouse friends have been supporting of HDVoice, like Universal Tandem and some of the guys at XConnect and those kind of guys. So we've got an inner core that wants to see this happen. Where do we stand as to where's the roadblock? Is it in the carrier's network itself, or is it just the fact that they've got too many places where we don't know how the interconnection works?
Well, I think that again, you have to take the U.S., which is basically, you know, the U.S. is backwards. I hate to say it. The U.S. carriers are behind the times on this, and the rest of the world. The rest of the world has HDVoice deployed in a lot of networks in Europe and in Asia, and people like France Telecom and Deutsche Telekom have a vested interest in making sure that their own networks intercommunicate to exchange HDVoice calls, because of course they said, hey, we're going to share RF networks anyway. So there's a lot of impetus over outside of the US to make sure that interoperability happens and happens soon between carriers. Within the States, you've got two different problems. Number one is that you've got the fact that Sprint and others are still just deploying HDVoice networks. And then, you know, even after you get over that hurdle, then there's the issue of interconnection, and the U.S. carriers are not saying anything about that at this time. And it's kind of like one of those, like, well, guys, you got to solve this. And, you know, with all the major incumbent carriers, it's like, yeah, we'll get to it when we get to it.
Right. Now, there's all this voice over LTE stuff from the GSMA and their stuff, and also Join, which is like their solution to compete with Skype and mobile. Is there access to HDVoice for those applications, or we haven't seen that yet?
Well, we have to be careful about Join, because Join's like kind of like a superset of what you can do with SIP communications. HDVoice is just, you know, if you can do Join, then you're going to be able to do HDVoice. Okay. So that's easy enough to do. But, you know, then again you get into, well, with rich communications is which standard are you talking about? And right now I think there are like 3 different standards on the table, and everybody's trying to unify under one global standard for rich communications. But, you know, again, okay, it's going to take some time.
Okay. And last but not least, in the insanity, not to say that the U.S. is behind, but everybody's a little screwy when it comes to how they're deploying LTE. So do we have any knowledge of any LTE deployments of HDVoice, or not yet? Actually,
we do. There are 2 major South Korean carriers, SK Telecom and LG Plus, are running voice over LTE, and they came out with HDVoice from day one.
And that's on the iPhone as well, or is that for multiple devices?
That's on everything except the iPhone, to be frank, because the Apple has not rolled out voice over LTE support for the iPhone 5, and that's kind of like the big piece of the puzzle. And the key question is, when you start talking about the iPhone 5 and VoLTE, is will Apple roll out a software firmware release to make the iPhone 5 do VoLTE, or will Apple be a little bit shady and introduce voice over LTE support with the iPhone 6 2 years down the road? And I think that's the big elephant in the room. A lot of the sources I've talked to say that, you know, it should just be a firmware upgrade that Apple can push out with like an iOS upgrade to the iPhone 5 to make it do voice over LTE. Because all the hardware is there, you know, the software can be beaten into submission in order to do it. Does Apple have the will to push out voice over LTE with the iPhone 5, or are we going to have to wait till the iPhone 6 and they just decide, oh, it's a lot simpler that way?
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny. I've been, I'm not exactly an Apple fan. I don't know if you've noticed that about me.
No, really? Okay.
But the thing that I've noticed is the fact that they've gotten into the IBM rules of releases, you know, and the fact that they say how much can we get on maximizing what we can make money-wise with the minimum set.
Well, let me tie this back into a statement that kind of like got beaten to death by the press. Sprint's, when people went to Sprint and said, will the iPhone 5 support HD voice? Sprint's statement was, the iPhone 5 does not support HD voice. Sprint does not support HD voice on the iPhone 5 at this time. Okay, the key phrase that got dropped in and all the frothing on, you know, the iPhone 5 does not support HD voice is the phrase at this time. Now, if we want to play a little Kremlinology here, this would imply that maybe there's a software firmware upgrade down the road to support HD voice in Sprint's network on the 3G CDMA network, as well as with the voice over LTE network. But Apple is not talking and saying anything official. The Sprint people are kind of like, well, we're waiting for Apple to tell us what's going on. So, big question there.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Great. Doug, thank you so much.
Carl, always a pleasure, man.
Lots of good content here. I'm hoping to tag this like crazy.
Yes, please.